Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Gaming the System, the feminist gaming podcast. Today, we are talking finally, what about men? And specifically, we're going to be looking at the concept of the alpha male. Does the alpha male even exist? If it does, is it a good thing? Is it what every man should aspire to be, and what every woman should aspire to be connected to? It's me, Alex, and Jem tonight, and we're going to start off with the question of what is an alpha male to you two? What would your impression be of an alpha male, Alex?
Probably a bit of a dick. Probably, yeah. You know the type. Yeah, just someone who's just really quite up themselves and like into themselves, and just like wanting to be top of the pack and in charge and have some authority, and let that authority be known to everyone. And yeah. I could go on, but I'm sure Jem has more interesting points to make.
No, that's so interesting, because to men we see alpha males all over the place. For example, like in God of War, early Kratos was definitely a very, very toxic alpha male, even though it was what I needed at the time to express myself. And probably Geralt from The Witcher. He's and it's that kind of the way that to men we think, oh yeah, they're awesome and cool. I wish I was like that. But they are often very, very incompatible to real women and real female characters, because real women would probably react a lot of the time like Alex does, and they're going, "You're a bit of a tosser, aren't you?" Jem, what do you think?
Everything that Alex has said. I think I sort of see alpha males as quite manipulative and controlling, because they're trying to get their own way, to bend everyone to their will. And also I think there's probably quite a lot of bravado that goes on there, and the sort of thing where people are, they're perhaps a lot of hyperbole. I'm thinking right now of Trump and Putin and Boris Johnson, people like that who are maintain their positions through manipulation and control. And I think, much as it pains me to say this about any of those three people, I think there is also an alpha male is usually has charisma, something magnetic about personality that inspires people to follow them.
Yeah, that's again, that instantly. So when I the first thing that I thought, how would I describe an alpha male? I thought 6'2", muscly, ripped, violent, comfortable with violence, dominating, emotionally in control, and desired by women. And those are the things that we as men are sold as we are see that, oh, that's how I want to be. But is as with a lot of things, it's pretty much a myth. You are right. I think like a lot of alpha male real world people trying to be alpha males are often just tossers who up themselves. But thinking of in game terms, have you two got any examples of alpha males that have just made you go, oh. Jem?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me. I think No, I suppose they're not really. Come back to me. Come back
Alex.
to me.
Oh no, this is, yeah. I guess probably you could say Ezio from Assassin's Creed, because he gets like, once he's fully like master assassin. I mean, obviously you're playing the good side, but at the end of the day, he's a bit of a ladies' man, and he's quite sure of himself, and like he's got that Italian sort of swag, I guess, about him, and those some of those characteristics align with what we've talked about already. Yes, but then it also is kind of dampening that down by saying, "Oh, but you're fighting the good fight here." So maybe there's an interesting parallel there. I don't know.
I feel like the element into, again, the word that resonated the most with me is incompatible with reality, because all the alpha male characters that we see, they are written by men who want to write what they want to be, and then the reason, I think, that the only reason, like, well, one of the reasons there are so few women, like real good characters, is because genuine people look at alpha males like that and go, I don't like you, well, leave me alone. Or they'll react in the million possible ways that real people react. So that is what pigeonholes female characters to being prostitutes who love having sex with the main character, which I think is that's a very odd thing that men write stories about.
I just thought of another one actually while you were talking. If you've played LA Noir, one of the partners that you have, so it's not main character, but it's a sort of side character, Royale, who is the most unlikable of all your partners because he's just an arse. Yeah, but he's just, there's a lot going on there. He's obviously sexist. He's obviously racist. He's probably ableist as well. But yeah, they kind of wrote him to be like the opposite of Cole, I guess. But you could argue that most of the male characters in LA Noir are alpha males because of the time period it depicts, as well as being the late 1940s. So there was probably a lot of cultural pressures on men in that time as well.
I think it's really interesting what you said, Matt, about it not being realistic and about people not in the real world not really liking them, because when I was just thinking about it just now, I think that the vast majority of this sort of alpha male character I would put down as being the villains in most of the games. So that's usually the villain, the bad guy that you're fighting, the big boss at the end, is normally the sort of classic alpha male with all of the traits that we've been talking about, because I think that the vast majority of people want to play or invest in the alpha male character in their games. They might aspire to be like them, or they might admire them, but I think they also find that kind of character too distinct from themselves to properly connect. So I think even when you have a playable character who shares some of the alpha male traits, they often have some flaw, whether maybe it's their physique or their their history. They've got there's something that just brings them down a couple of notches. That's the way that I see it. But then I tend to stay away from male-dominated games, so it may just be the world that I move in.
One person that I absolutely loathe and can't understand why anyone likes him in the slightest is Nathan Drake from Uncharted. He is the blandest white male hero
I can't believe I didn't think of him, actually. That's
Yeah,
clearly an obvious choice. But
yeah,
yes.
irritating, bland, not funny, absolute bollocks. Desired by all the women around him. That's the only reason they're in there. And they were graced. They were given. They were. Are we not merciful to have the two female characters have their own tiny mini side game after the entire 4 Uncharted games and a film which is utterly unwatchable.
I watched it. It was all right. Like, it's the kind of one you watch when you're drunk and you can point and laugh at it. And then you're fine. But yeah.
It's that the sort of there are sort of the alpha males where you look at someone and go, okay, they're awesome and you can't take that away from them. But when you try and force the alpha male status on people and say this is an alpha male, look at them, like Nathan Drake, you just go, can't you just write something that's interesting? They don't have to be super strong and interesting. But I digress. I think the thing that makes the characters that people love the most is that they are the master of their own fate. They're the ones with ultimate agency, and that's what the concept of the alpha male is that they're the leader.
Yeah.
But it's actually a load of bollocks, and it's because an article from the International Wolf Center has written on the case of what is an alpha wolf? Does it even exist? And no, it was coined in the 40s, and it was the idea that let me see. Alpha implies competing with others and becoming top dog by winning a contest or battle. So that's all about, yeah, we're strong and we fight and we dominate others. When in fact it's it's about who is the best breeder. Wolves don't come into a pack and fight and then take over. You find a mate and you make some little wolves, and then that's your pack. So you're actually a breeder, not a fighter.
Although in the animal world, doesn't that sometimes equate the two are the same thing?
Yes, I suppose. What you're fighting for is the chance to reproduce a lot of the time. So I put my nature documentary hat on. Yes.
I would hope that well, first off, we're not wolves.
No.
Even if it was true of wolves, we're not wolves.
No.
And we're a lot more complicated than that. And I hope that since we crawled out of the ocean, we had evolved further than Neanderthals. Right? So we've answered this slightly already. How does it feel? So I have always seen myself represented as the main characters and powerful characters in the games I've played. It's very rare that I have to play as something that is other than myself. When you've played games that you're constantly having to play as male characters, I don't know if this applies to you, Jem, very much because you played so much of like the World of Warcraft stuff where you can make your own characters. So I'll come to you second. Alex, how does it feel constantly having to play as these kinds of buffed up male characters?
I guess because there's been not so much of an option, it doesn't feel, I've kind of like just been used to it and sort of like it's not been a massive bother. But when you stop and think about it, actually you realise that a lot of it is dominated by these types of male characters. And then I suppose you could do what Jem does, for example, and just play a lot of games where you make the choice about what type of character you want to play and kind of mould your own character, which is kind of one way of getting around it if you discover that you are having a hard time playing alpha male type characters. But I guess, I mean, take for example Uncharted. Like, I just enjoyed the premise of it being like Tomb Raider and being an adventure more than playing as a muscly, exciting adventurer man who was a bit of a hit with the ladies and made funny jokes and said crap a lot. It was more about like, obviously that was like, that side of it was, it was at times funny. I will admit I was taken in, if you would say, by Nate and his character, but in general the story and the expanse of a lot of the game and the puzzles and the general gameplay was more of a focus for me than the character I was playing, which is probably not the answer you were expecting, but that is, I would say, largely my experience of a game like Uncharted, if we're taking that example.
Yeah, it's a part of that. You have to go, oh yeah, I'll settle for this
Mm.
because I like the
Yeah,
gameplay, I like the action, so I'll ignore the fact that I'll bite my
yeah.
tongue and just
If
do
there was a
what I
choice
want.
of characters, they may well have chosen differently, but because it's a linear game, you just go with it because that's what it is. I think was kind of my stance on it.
It's the thing that are like, this is the way things are. I better just
Yeah,
get on with it.
yeah,
Um, one of the fabulous quote somewhere, which I'll find in a minute.
yeah.
Jem, what's your experience?
Um, well, like we said, I prefer to play female characters when I'm gaming, and therefore I tend to seek out games that have female characters, or playable female characters, and where possible, I will go that option. I did beat Uncharted and I did enjoy that. And I also played Final Fantasy 15, amongst other games, but that's the latest one that I played. And that's a group of sort of five, four lads out on an adventure, so like a road trip. And that is very laddie, and there's a lot of the whole alpha male stuff going on there, and in amongst the group, although they have different strengths and weaknesses, in their personalities. I think individually they're not as a true alpha male, but I think collectively they come together to form one enormous alpha male. I think that I find that it distances me from the storyline when I'm playing as these characters, because it doesn't. I don't identify with it. I don't feel it. And I'll often spend my time rolling my eyes or just being or whatever, when they make. I mean, in Final Fantasy 15, there's quite a lot of sort of sexist commentary that goes on, and it's jarring. I think it's jarring because I'm female, and doubly jarring because I'm feminist. So I think it's it has a kind of like double effect on me. But it's never bad to walk in somebody else's shoes and to get a feel for how life might be like in another, from another perspective. And I don't think it does occasionally to step into these archetypal roles. I think problem lies when that's all or the majority of what you can access. I think that's where it's problematic. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind playing an alpha male character occasionally, but I would not want it to be my only option. And I think if it was, I probably wouldn't game as much as I do. I think it does make a big difference to me, actually, to my connection to the game and my immersion game.
One thing you can tell about the response, but what about men? Is usually the response of a stroppy, a stroppy person wanting to go. Oh, well, everything's fine. This is what you want about, really feminists. You are right about it is always good to think about and experience life in someone else's shoes. But because 99% of stuff historically has been, you need to walk in a white man's shoes,
Yeah.
and then you'll be glad of it. I have found, I've so the the stuff that I'm going to be reading from occasionally for the rest of the episode is from a gentleman by the name of Joshua Sigafus, and he writes about what an alpha male is and why we need men to be living up to their best alpha male possibilities. In order to, so I find that you can learn a lot about a writer by how they write. So there's what they say and then how they say it. So to give you an idea of where this guy is coming from, I'll start off with an excerpt from his article, "The Beta Male Explained: Understanding the Loyal Lieutenant."
I'm excited already.
Right. Beta males are the lieutenants of the social sexual hierarchy. So apparently that's the thing that we're all involved on. They're fiercely loyal to their alphas. In exchange for this loyalty, they enjoy many benefits of high status and position. Beta males are crucial to a stable hierarchy and enforce the alpha's rule to maintain order and structure. This next sentence may surprise you. In my close circle of friends, I'm the alpha. We always meet at my house. I always coordinate everything. And before any plans are solidified, everyone runs them past me.
Wow.
So imagine again, put yourself in this person's shoes. This person is the protagonist of his game. This way of thinking, because this is like my gender and my lived experience, this can sort of, the dots can connect to me because this is how I've been conditioned in my life. Does this does this kind of social structuring have, like, does it make sense to you, Jeb?
Yes.
Or Alex, go ahead.
There you go. I was just going to say, it strikes me as being very, very militarized in tone. I don't know if anyone else picked up on that. But then I thought about, well, are we like that as women, though? Or are we different? I don't know. This is opening up a whole interesting discussion. But that's my initial thoughts anyway, is that a lot of the terms were very militaristic. Go on, Jump, you go, if you have thoughts.
Yeah, I think in groups there is usually one person who does get to sort of decide what happens. But I don't think, in my experience, that everything is run by that person. I think, that just seems like a really, that gel with the experience that I've had, not in female groups, in male groups. That doesn't, and it doesn't gel with the, I mean, you're the place to answer this question, Matt, but it doesn't gel conversations that I've had with men about their friendship groups. I mean, because I've associated with geeks for most of my life, and as within society, the geek community is the geeks aren't the alpha males in the wider society, although I know there are examples of geeky alpha males. I'd still expect that same structure, based on this guy's theory, to work through at every level, every level in society. So just because you're not an alpha male in the whole society doesn't mean you couldn't be an alpha male within your subgroup. But that certainly hasn't been my experience of the way that men's groups work. They don't talk to anyone. They don't ask
No,
anyone's
they don't
they
communicate. Yeah,
they just get on with it.
yeah,
It's so interesting because again, this is me like trying to walk in your shoes because this is stuff that I've been drip fed for my entire life.
Yeah.
And it's interesting what you say about the militaristic thing, Jem. Is you'll notice that boys are brought up to play with guns and think that fighting is cool, that violence is cool. And there's a very specific thing about, say, why Call of Duty is so popular is because, the military is cool, guns are cool, going and shooting guns and fighting things is awesome. And that is something that young men tend to gravitate to because they go, I want to be like this hero, this perfect warrior person. But I don't know how familiar you two are with the militias in America. You've heard of them? So
not
basically,
overly.
so the part of the Constitution is the right to bear arms and an organised militia in case the government turns into false tyranny. And then the militia will rise and fight the actual United States Army. And if you look at all of these militias, they are pathetic little man children wearing combat gear with weapons, pretending like they're alpha males. And it is pathetic. And it's exactly the kind of like awful toxic side that this alpha male like concept does, because it makes people like that go, oh, I need people to think I'm tough and I feel really vulnerable and don't know what to do, which is what being human is. And those kinds of people gravitate towards the dickheads, as Alex said,
Yeah.
who purport to play that role, and it ends up with the person who is the most full of shit gets surrounded by the people who are a bit less full of shit, and then this is the kind of alpha beta. That's the like what it turns into. And Jem, you mentioned you'd been looking at stuff like 8chan and 4chan and those kinds of places, and incel culture. This is a massive problem with incel culture because it's saying, I'm trying to be an alpha male and women aren't responding to me being an alpha male.
Yeah.
So that means there's something that they've done.
Wow.
Does this sound like something? Because it feels like a lot of those militia people are the people in 4chan. Does that sound right?
Yeah. I think it's obviously the alpha male concept feeds into toxic masculinity, like a little tributary stream. And I think, it's clearly problematic because it's, as you've said, it's a myth. It's based on incorrect information about the way that wolf packs work, and it's been created into this idea that this is how humans work, when actually there isn't any evidence to support that. But the thing is that we so often take an idea that we like the idea of and run with it, and that's all very well and good, but then that creates this ideal that young men are supposed to want to be. And it's very problematic. It does affect people all through society, and wherever they sit. And I think the problem with like the incel culture and things like that is that because this concept of male and like value men is so screwed up, is so problematic. Young men who probably have their own things that they can bring to society are trying to compete in a false competition, with a whole set of false things that they're trying to achieve. It's like the same problem that we have with, say, filters on photos on Instagram, and this false concept of beauty that women are supposed to aspire to, and always find themselves failing against, always find themselves, because it isn't what real people look like. And it's and I think the same applies to this idea, this concept of the alpha male is bollocks, and yet people are trying to achieve something they can never achieve, and that frustration, and that leads to anger, especially for those who find themselves or believe that they are at the bottom of the pile. They become more desperate to claw their way up to the top of this imaginary mountain. It's just ridiculous. It's so depressing. God, I wish
And
I hadn't put it all like that.
don't worry,
just
I've
gonna
got
go
I've got some more of this article to read.
now.
So
Oh God.
don't worry. Um, you say people want to crawl up to the top of the pile. It's the idea of the idea of social hierarchy is damaging enough,
It is.
because I've been thinking about all the divisions in society of the well, it's not divisions, it's large groups attacking marginalized groups. So there's the conversion therapy thing in the UK. Conversion therapy's been banned apart from transgender and non-binary people. And in there's the war in Ukraine, and everyone in the Western world has gone, yes, we support Ukraine, but there's dead silence about the war in Yemen. And it's the idea of some people matter, some people are worthy of being treated like humans, and some people deserve the way they're treated. That's the only way that they can't. All of the words and the talking and the strong positions and the boldness, it all just comes back to them thinking that transgender people deserve to have conversion therapy. The people in Yemen deserve to be bombed. And it's that idea of, crawling. You're crawling over other people in order to, young men are being propagandized into trying to pursue this incredibly toxic way of existence. That this is going to go on something like I didn't mean to go all dark and dark and dim. We'll be through it in a moment. How if you think about the patriarchy is like having a harem, a man having a harem. You got one man, and he's got 20 women who are there for his beck and call for whatever he wants. That might be heaven for that man, but it's 20 hells for those individual women. Those women have to sacrifice who they are and what they want in order to fulfill this man's fantasy. And if that doesn't happen, then the men get angry, and that leads to so much of the misogyny that we have. And to bring it back to the fun article, it's the idea of unfairness. That's what so many reactions are. Like someone says, what about men? You're not focusing on men. It's unfair. Women won't want to have sex with me. It's unfair. It's unfair. I'm not an alpha male. It's unfair. And what was his name? Joshua. Back to Joshua. He says, the archetypal alpha male is defined first and foremost by his innate leadership abilities. But this is closely intertwined with his highly sensitive hierarchical consciousness. You need to know what the pecking order is and how you fit into it. This is the a point where he needs a big dose of self-awareness. These great, strong, powerful men decided to be masculine lions instead of feminized male sheep, leading the rest of us to survival when the alternative was to stagnate and die.
Oh, there's a lot to unpack there.
Who is this guy? What are his credentials?
He's he's got more YouTube subscribers than us, so people are listening. He is just part of the massive swathe of incel fuel literature. I think just the ones that people like. So many people feel powerless. That's the nature of the world that capitalism and patriarchy has built. And these are the places where people can go to and say, yes, I'm the victim. The idea that even though the patriarchy is literally built for men, that we're the victims, that the world, that like say for America in particular, is built for, was like white people have ruled it forever and is completely centered around white people, and yet white people believe that they're the ones that are most discriminated against. But then that the ability, the freedom to behave like that is an exercise of privilege, because you don't get you don't whenever like a white person in America, like there was a guy who had a knife and was like literally trying to attack the police, and they disarmed him. But then if they see a 13-year-old boy with a truck in a park, they'll go and shoot him instantly. So the idea that the privilege that men have in terms of the all the variety of male heroes and alpha heroes that people like me have got to play out their entire life, they come at the sacrifice of female characters. So how do you find that in games that the alpha male stereotype is denigrating to the women in those games and the women who play them? Jam.
How do I find it denigrating? Well, I think you put it quite well earlier, actually, when you said it forces women into oppositional roles that help to maintain and justify the macho hierarchy. And I think they can't be equal in a scenario where there's this hierarchy. The women cannot be equal, so they're not able to be. So the characters just are never going to reach that point. That's there. And then even worse than that, it's about reinforcing that role. So they not only can they not be equal, but they have to be deferential. They have to be provide examples, and this wouldn't just apply to the female characters; this would apply to any other characters in the game. But I think the female character going to get hit by this harder. Everything that they do is going to there to demonstrate the alpha maleness of this character. So it's all about, demonstrating their sexual prowess, demonstrating their physical prowess, demonstrating their right to lead, their right to be in charge, and all of that is a sort of debasement, really, of the other characters in the game. So it's by its very existence just pushes women into it. It pushes women down. Yeah.
I definitely think that it's something I've noticed more, or at least it's come to my attention more since starting the podcast with you guys. And one particular example I can remember very clearly was from my playthrough or little let's play of Final Fantasy VII Remake, where it's not so much about the main character you play, Cloud. It's about the female characters in that game and how they're portrayed to play off of Cloud and kind of move him up in the pecking order, as it were. It's because all the women are objectified and kind of revolve around him as the central character. And I think that's definitely something I picked up on. So I would agree with Jem, definitely. And that's a really vivid example that I can think of.
Yeah, to anyone who's played Final Fantasy stuff, there's quite a, particularly in. I always come back to the idea that so many men creating things have just stopped their development at 15 years old.
Yeah.
A 15-year-old pubescent boy taking the tools that they have to create what a 15-year-old pubescent straight boy would want. So if you think about Final Fantasy VII, the original, it was just pixels, a couple of pixels making a character. And now they've got the like almost realistic technology in the world, and go, oh, we can make Tifa as sexy as we always wanted her to be. And we can have the biggest boobs and the tiniest waists.
No, I definitely remember it making me feel alienated when I played it. So yeah, that's definitely a standout point for me. I would agree. Yeah.
And Jem, you said what's a while back in our sexualization episode talking about Final Fantasy 15. Was it the mechanic? Cindy the mechanic, who's basically Google Cindy the mechanic to see what a group of apparently middle-aged men dreamt up. There always seems to be yes, never mind. Going back to the the idea of unfairness. The world is unfair for men. Joshua writes, and as much as people want to avoid, and as much as people want to point and sputter at the quote-unquote patriarchy for monopolizing the system, men certainly didn't invent the rules. It's just the way things are.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Say that again.
Who invented the rules? God.
Nature.
It's
just nature. It was the women did it.
Yeah, it's just the point is it's just natural. That's just what's that?
But that is a really powerful argument, actually, and I've heard it used for in favour of capitalism, in favour of the patriarchy, in favour of conservatism, all of those things, because the idea that there's no other way, this is the way it is because this is the only way it can be. This is the way it has to be, justifies it. I mean, it sort of absolves somebody of having to even consider another way that we could be, or a way that we could exist. And it's actually quite a powerful argument to say it's not our fault, this is just how it is, when we know that's absolute rubbish. We know that's not true.
Yeah. It's quite gatekeepy in a way, isn't it? It's like saying, oh, well, it's always been this way, and you have to believe me because I've been here the longest, and therefore what I say goes, and nothing else.
Absolutely.
Nothing else is allowed.
Apparently, we live in a hyper-feminized modern-day world, Alex and Jem. So you need to be more. You need to be more accommodating, frankly.
What does a
If men,
feminized world mean? I mean, I don't even know. I don't know if we live in a feminized world. What does that mean?
well, I tell you what it needs. It needs more strong men. And alpha traits are the answer to the problem. Because if men don't cultivate and nurture their masculine traits, their natural magnetic male attractiveness is going to fade and dissipate. This is one of the major reasons why so many men are so frustrated with dating in our hyper-feminized world. I'm afraid.
And yet, the women are still managing to find partners.
Amazingly.
Sorry, this is ridiculous.
Oh,
Yet and
yeah.
yet.
It's just that the harder they fight to fight, it's that reaching, it's reaching for yes. That's the reason. I'm actually a victim because all the people with no power are actually the ones with all the power.
Yeah.
It's this. It makes me think of the that extremely common saying of if a man and a woman are going on a date, the man is afraid the worst thing is the woman's going to laugh at him, and the woman's afraid that he's going to murder her. That is that element of the failure to understand the actual nature of society is so damaging for men, because men we're top of the totem pole. We are living in general safety, physical safety in any way. We're not under constant threat of violence, whereas women are under the constant threat of violence. And that is a completely, again, walking in someone else's shoes. Maybe that would be a helpful thing for a lot of men to experience. Gaming, it would be a perfect way to do that, because you're actually in that person's shoes, feeling that way. And so for men, straight away, I think we've got about 12 minutes left. So in a moment, we're going to move on to how this is damaging young men. So what about men? How is the alpha male concept and this obsession with strength and dominating women, how that actually damages the young men learning to be that way? I think we'll move straight onto that then, because I'd forgotten what my last point was. Alex, how do you think that the idea of the alpha male is damaging to men themselves?
I think one thing I can think of right off the bat is that it really hinders men's ability to be open and communicative and to understand their feelings and process those feelings and express them in a way that is healthy for them to do. I think if you're aspiring to be an alpha male, you have to be strong and tough and kind of push down your feelings. They don't matter. You have to be the top of the pile. You have to not care about people lower than you, and you have to be better than the people lower than you. So that naturally leads to also a lack of empathy and a sympathy, because it's a competition, and there's no place for those things in a competition, if that's how you're viewing the world. And I'm sure there's more I could say, but yeah, those are the things that leap out to me to start with. Yeah.
Yeah, the word competition is perfect. It's such a, we're supposed to be competing all the time, and in particular the suppression of emotion is probably, for men, that's probably the most damaging, consistently damaging conditioning that we have over the course of our lives, because there's a reason why male suicide rates are so high. It's because they don't talk about what they're feeling.
Yep.
And feelings, particularly negative feelings, and if you don't know what to deal with, you don't know what you're going to do, and then that spins around and round and round and round and round and round and round your head, and it can make you very, very ill. And then that leads to people feeling like they're weak and that they're pathetic. And if you can't, how can you be an alpha if you missed your rent last month, if you can't afford this, if you can't do that? And while alpha male characters can be fun to play, it's not enough. It's not enough. Men need to be. We need better role models. To be honest, we need. I think we're getting better in terms of representation now. For example, Kratos. He used to be a one-man raging violence machine. And in all, I think there were 8 or 9 games of his self in Greece, and in every single one of those games there was a sex mini game, because that's what a 15-year-old boy would, given the chance to make a video game, would do. That's how that was, which is just the idea of anger and violence, which is fun. But now he is a father figure, learning to be a single parent with a young son who he's afraid is going to follow in his footsteps, and he's afraid, but he becomes a good father, and you can see the emotions written on his face and in his voice. And I think we are developing towards I don't believe this, but more like a modern alpha. So he's strong, but he's caring and he's empathetic, and he changes babies' nappies. He doesn't just leave everything to his to the wife. Jem, how do you find how the idea of the prototypical alpha male is damaging to men?
Yeah, well, I think I kind of covered a lot of my concerns earlier with this, because I think that it is an unachievable ideal that is just bound to create dissatisfaction and resentment and mental health issues. I think Alex hit the nail on the head with how damaging it is to men, young men especially. We know that suicide rates are ridiculously high amongst young men and men in general, and I just can't help but feel that at least some of that to this concept of the alpha male. I think in a society where it is working towards greater equality, the idea that the idea of what forms an alpha male are no longer relevant. It isn't about being the breadwinner. It isn't about winning all the fights. It isn't about how many women you can bed. That isn't actually the world that we live in anymore. And I know that the problem is that there is a group of men who want to live in that world, or at least fantasize about it. I don't know whether they actually truly do want to live in that world, and I think it is really problematic that we have this concept that some people are aspiring to, and I think it is problematic that is then translating into the male role models and heroes that we have in our games and our video, on our TV shows and our movies, our videos. I've been watching films with blockbusters in it recently, so I'm all back in the video thing. And I think, it is a real problem. I mean, it's interesting. In Horizon New Dawn, Aloy's father sort of is Rost is another good example. He's strong, he's wily, but he's also a father. And when they needed to find somebody to give her to, they gave her as a baby to this man, and they said, "You look after her," because they clearly felt. And this is a tribe that's a matriarchal tribe, and yet they felt, and I know that is something that happens in that the men take care of the children more, but I think it's a positive thing, because by being loving and caring and supportive, he didn't lose masculinity. He wasn't emasculated, and I think that's the thing. As a woman, I can say that it's very attractive when a man has some connection to his emotions and engages with family life and the world around them, and enjoys fluffy kittens. All of those things are things that most actually do find quite attractive. So it's just this whole, it's just a load of, and I think it is massively problematic.
Yeah, as you point out, because most women are real women, they're real people. So they're not written by the same people who write the main characters. We're gonna finish. We've got about 3 minutes left. Some dating advice for you, Jem and Alex. I know you're both taken, but should tragedy strike, you'll have this. Do you know what?
Listening carefully.
Yeah. Do you know what you two desire most in an alpha male?
Is that for us to answer now?
Money.
Money
Yeah, money's a fair shout, actually. Yes, that would be useful.
would be useful. Yes, you're right. Above all, women desire resources and status potential. So you need your man to be high power and having a lot of cash. But remember, alpha males are virtually always operating from a position of sexual abundance. Okay, so it's no use trying to be all sexual, because your alpha won't get your alpha to pay attention to you.
No, because they can choose anyone.
Yeah, that's exactly it. This is the alpha males have much less reason to fall in love and settle down, because they're much freer than most of the other archetypes to fill their evolutionary sexual mandate. Jem, you hit it on the head. Unlimited access to unlimited women.
Unlimited women.
But I hear you cry. What makes an alpha male fall in love? How do you bag yourself an alpha male?
Just snag an alpha male.
That is the question of the hour.
Any thoughts?
Oh, well, you've got to be
you're an alpha female.
Good carer.
Or
alpha female.
Yeah. I don't know. One of the two.
We didn't even get on to the idea of, is there such thing as an alpha female that isn't just a woman who's been written like the way to behave the way that behaves.
See, we've been pushed out by the alpha men again.
Yeah. This is our What About Men episode, our one What About Men episode. Well, you need... What's a good one? You need to be beautiful, but not vain or conceited. We don't want that. We need you to
No,
be.
no.
We need you to be effortlessly beautiful to the extent that you you don't
We
realize.
get up and our hair's already amazing. We don't even need to brush it. Right?
That's a big tick there for us then, Alex,
Mhm,
on that one, isn't
mhm.
it? What's next, Matt?
You need to maintain your youthfulness and your playfulness, but you need to also be demonstrating responsibility and maturity. Means you want to be, yeah,
Mhm.
youthful
Well, I'm a
and
gaming
playful.
mum, so I feel like
Yeah,
I'm ticking those boxes as well.
yeah,
And yeah.
You don't get more
true.
playful and responsible than a gaming mother.
It's very true. That should be one of our slogans.
um,
Put it on a t-shirt. That would be really good, actually. Yeah.
okay. You need to have a blend of domestic and professional skills. Okay, so that's good. But
Yeah.
they need to add real value to the alpha's life.
I wonder what
Okay.
they mean by professional skills.
You can have a job, but you don't earn more money than your alpha, because that might threaten him.
To tip the balance.
Yeah, can't have that.
Mm.
And yeah, domestic means do all the housework, do all the shit jobs, and
But
we'll
still have
close
a
that.
laugh.
Still have a laugh, yes.
Mm.
And you need to be wild in bed, but also faithful, loyal, and trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's so. And even though alpha males get angry if they think about the women they're with, their
Being,
previous partners.
yeah.
And you go, oh, it makes me feel really insecure. So basically, all of it is you need to make me feel strong and powerful whilst doing all the housework and child
Mm.
rearing and rubbish jobs. So that was fun.
Yes.
I think we'll bring the episode to a close. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.
Mm.
That was our What About Men episode. So for the men watching or listening, there you go. That's about you. And we are Gaming the System. We are
Mm.
the Feminist Gaming Podcast, and you can find us every Thursday at 7 p.m. Doing something interesting. Please do like, share, and subscribe on Twitch and YouTube. And if you're listening to us, do us a cheeky 5-star review and comment, particularly on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And I believe that's everything. Until next time, bye bye.